If you're not a big fan of rats, then this probably isn't the movie for you. Although horror movies are supposed to scare, so if you're not a fan of rats, maybe this is the movie you should be watching. Yes, that's because we're going to be looking at the upcoming release of Scream Factories of Unknown Origin, which will be making its Blu-ray debut on May 22nd, 2018. This is an early sample copy, but you can go to your stores, wherever you buy Blu-rays and DVDs, and this will be coming out on May 22nd, 2018. It does star one Peter Weller up at the top here, not portraying a cyborg, but rather a sleek businessman on Wall Street who has to contend with a giant rat. Who knew? At the time that this movie was coming out, I thought it was going to be a different movie. In fact, when I was younger, I remember a movie being on A&E all the time, and it involved a writer who was typing out a novel and had a giant rat that was living in the walls. Ultimately, I think this writer struggles with this rat and throws it onto a coffee table. This movie is not that at all. But if anybody knows the name of that movie, please let me know down below, because it's driving me up the wall. Almost as up the wall as Bart Hughes here, portrayed by Peter Weller. That's a segue for you. Is driven up the wall by a giant rat that is moving up the walls inside his Manhattan house. This movie was directed by George P. Cosmatos, who also did Tombstone, and a rather nice little gem, which I hopefully will get a new Blu-ray treatment, A Cobra, starring Sylvester Stallone. This movie also stars this individual right here, which at the time I was watching the movie, I kept thinking, because I guess I hadn't seen the opening credits, that girl looks a lot like Shannon Tweed. I kept saying to myself, no, she looks like Shannon Tweed, but not quite Shannon Tweed. Ultimately, it also stars Shannon Tweed. Well, basically, the whole premise of the movie, without giving anything away, is Bart Hughes is the king of sleek Manhattan brownstone. He basically does deals and trades and stuff like that. And while his wife and his son are away visiting the grandparents, Bart is staying home. He has to finish up some projects, and he has to contend with a giant rat. Sounds interesting, doesn't it? The tagline up at the top says, "If you can't scare them to death, it will find another way." This is also the original artwork, the original casework, because again, this was never released on Blu-ray. So Shout Factory doesn't have the internal insert here showing you, what the original cover looked like, because I think this is the original box artwork for the original VHS and beta releases of Unknown Origin. The title actually doesn't even give any reference to the fact that it has anything to do with rats until you read the back. It says, a visual tour de force, fast, taut, and darkly comic. When not mirrored in the corporate rat race, Wall Street executive Bart Hughes is the king of sleek Manhattan brownstone until he finds his castle under siege by the most determined of home intruders. Forced to enter the rat race of an entirely different sort, Bart takes a stand with his survival and sanity at stake. Peter Weller, star of RoboCop and Sons of Anarchy, star in Unknown Origin, an eerie and nerve-tingling suspense thriller directed by George P. Cosmatos, who also did Tombstone and the previously mentioned Cobra, and the winner of the Paris Film Festival Awards for Best Picture and Actor. Cleverly and compellingly, the film draws you into a battle of wits, namely one with the intruder that's formidable, persistent, and clever enough to lure Bart, played by Weller, along with a relentless path to self-destruction. In the battle of man versus beast, push has come to Scream. This movie you'll watch and you'll probably think to yourself, here if you live in Canada, I recognize a lot of those actors and actresses as being Canadian actors and actresses. Well, it's also, this movie was shot in Montreal, Canada here. Supposedly, some reading up on this movie I think had a budget of about $4 million, and it didn't even make nearly that in theaters. It's actually nice to see a film like this could be given a Blu-ray treatment for the fact that it's probably one of the lesser known creature movies. The special features are not a lot, actually. Special features include 2K scan from the Inner Positive, new interviews with executive producer Perry David and screenwriter Bran Taggart. I kind of had hoped that there was going to be interviews with Peter Weller, but luckily in the audio commentary, there's director George P. Cosmanos and actor Peter Weller doing the commentary. Also features a theatrical trailer and still gallery, but doesn't really have anything else. I would have loved to see a making of the movie, or something along those lines, like a behind-the-scenes sort of thing. The movie itself is pretty good. I will say, though, watching the movie, first and foremost, I was thinking it was going to be a completely different movie. I thought it was going to be the giant rat coffee table. Still don't know what the name of that movie is. Ultimately, though, it is still a man versus a beast, and it kind of plays more towards the unraveling of one man's sanity. He starts relatively calm, and then over the course of the movie, without giving any spoilers away, you can kind of start seeing that sanity unravel. The movie itself also doesn't use, of course it doesn't use special effects in the sense that it doesn't use computer generated, because again, the year of this movie, by the way, is 1983, and the running time is 89 minutes. So it's not a very long movie. But one of the things specifically about Of Unknown Origin is that all the footage that they used of the giant rat is essentially a real rat. They did a lot of camera work where they show the underside of the rat. They kind of zoom into the rat and kind of put it on the foreground of other scenes. So it does look like the rat's bigger than what it is. They do a lot of close-ups of the rat. And ultimately, they didn't use any real special effects until like the rats are attacking. If the rat is attacking, say, Peter Weller, then they use more like a prop, something that he can have on his shoulder or something that he can run around with. But really, all the majority of the movie is making use of a real rodents, which is neat in the sense that it looks very realistic. But part of me, being the horror guy that I am when it comes to like 80s movies, I would love to have seen a very gruesome, grotesque animatronic rat. But I guess that would have eaten away at the $4 million budget that this movie has. The movie does seem like it has a good pacing to it, but at times it does feel like it does drag ever so slightly. It does have a slow burn to it. I don't feel like it's got the most rewarding of payoffs at the very end of the movie. The man versus beast, with again giving nothing away, I don't think has the rewarding creature horror movie ending that one would hope. It kind of slowly burns out. I kind of felt at the very end of the movie that I was asking myself, and I probably may have even said this aloud, is that it? That's it? So again, it's watching the movie, you will feel as if you're watching almost a made-for-TV movie, something that maybe you would have watched a Sunday afternoon on TV. It doesn't feel overly big in the sense of an overly big budget, or about the biggest thing that's of the movie is not necessarily the rat, but the house in which the most of the story plays out in. Peter Weller is good, although he does feel a slight bit unnatural with the way he acts. RoboCop, he can easily pass it off, but if you're any bit familiar with Peter Weller, the actor, he certainly has a delivery to him that doesn't sometimes seem natural. And a lot of times while watching him in this movie, I don't feel as if he was a really natural character that I could relate to. Until he starts somewhat unraveling, and then you start kind of seeing a little bit more human sides to him. And I guess that really is the whole point of the movie. As over the course he gets frustrated with the giant rat, you can kind of see that he has more composed nature. He starts to unravel a little bit, and you can start seeing him crumbling. His very sanity starts crumbling over the course of the movie. One other thing I want to mention about this particular movie that I found was offsetting was, as much as they wanted to make use of a real rat for close-up shots because they didn't want to use an animatronic rat, there are certain scenes at the beginning of the movie where he is researching rats, and he basically just flips through several different pages and photos of people that have been attacked by rats. I think those are real photos, which I found was slightly disturbing. Even more disturbing, he's at the library and he's watching video footage, and there's footage where rats are attacking one another and attacking little baby rats, and I kind of found that was a little upsetting. I really wish that they could just have left that all out. I don't mind movie made-up horror, but what I don't really want to see is, any real animals suffering and using that footage in the movie. It's very small, but it does make a slight appearance in the movie, so just be aware of that. Overall, Of Unknown Origin, I don't think will ever be placed in the upper echelon when it comes to creature horror movies. It's probably one of the more forgettable horror movies, but it's really neat that they would have released this in Blu-ray form. Even at the very least, that this movie is not one of those ones that you're really going to remember down the road. It's nice that you can get some of these real gems, and that's one of the things I like about Shout Factory / Scream Factory, is that they are releasing things from the archive of movies that you probably have never heard of. I supposedly thought this movie had to do with a giant rat and a coffee table, and I was absolutely wrong. But still, nonetheless, I found myself enjoying the movie. It just didn't pay off exactly what I was hoping the movie would have done. And special features aren't the most. There's not really a lot of behind the scenes and stuff like that, which I would have really liked. But at the very least, you know, you've got the interviews and you know, you've got the commentary with Peter Weller. So at the very least, it's curious to see what Peter Weller then says about the movie over the course of the running, very short, I might add, 89 minutes of this film. Like I said, this is going to be coming to store shelves on May 22nd, 2018. Today we were having a look at the Scream Factory Of Unknown Origin, the intense thriller coming to Blu-ray for the very first time on May 22nd, 2018. If you guys want to go back and have a look at some of my other film reviews, you can go to the section that says Scream Factory, or I think it says Shout Factory Blu-ray releases. You can go back and have a look at some of those. If you guys also want to see more of this kind of stuff on this channel, let me know down below in the comments section. As always, guys, thanks for watching as you always do. I'll see you next time.